St. Malachy was an Irish saint and Archbishop of Armagh, to whom were attributed several miracles and an alleged vision of 112 popes later attributed to the apocalyptic list of the Prophecy of the Popes. He was the first native-born Irish saint to be canonized. Background: Viking raids on Ireland began around the start of the 9th century. The country was subsequently invaded and occupied. Many monasteries were plundered, monks were put to the sword, churches were demolished, and libraries were burned. These disruptions, along with secular impositions by the invaders, produced a decline in Christian religious observance and moral standards established by St. Patrick and other early missionaries. Apathy towards the Christian virtues increased, and by the 11th century some parts of Ireland had even returned to paganism. Life: Malachy, whose family name was Auga, was born in Armagh in 1095. St. Bernard describes him as having noble birth. He was baptized male Madoc and was trained under Imma O'Hagan, subsequently Abbot of Armagh. Imma was in sympathy with the aims of those who sought to reform the Irish Church, and it was probably through his influence that Malachy became imbued with the principles. After a long course of studies, Malachy was ordained priest by St. Selic in 1119. Shortly afterwards Selic made the young priest his vicar. For the next year or two it was Malachy's duty to administer the diocese of Armagh. He established in all the churches the apostolic sanctions and the decrees of the Holy Fathers, and the customs and practices of the Roman Church. He introduced the Roman method of chanting the services of the canonical hours and instituted a new confession, confirmation, the marriage contract, which those over whom he was placed were either ignorant or negligent. With the consent of Selic and Imar, he went to study under St. Malchus, who had by this time retired from the Archbishopric of Cashel and was settled at Lismore. He spent 3 years there. Abbot of Bangor. In 1123 the co-abb of Bangor Abbey died. Bangor was the principal religious site in the northeast of Ireland. Since he ended his days at Lismore, it may be assumed that he was a friend of Malchus, and of the movement with which he was identified. His successor, who was Malachy's uncle, expressed his willingness to surrender his office and the site of the monastery to his nephew. Malachy became abbot of Bangor Abbey. This became an opportunity to implement one of the canons of the Synod of Rathbresale, which by establishing the diocese of Connacht, Selic, as co-abb of Patrick and consecrated bishop, had been able to organize the diocese of Armagh in accordance with the Rathbresale plan. With the prestige which belonged to the co-abb of Comgall, Malachy, if consecrated bishop, could probably succeed in organizing the diocese of Connacht. In 1124 Malachy journeyed to Bangor, was installed as abbot, and was made bishop by Selic. In 1132, he was promoted to the primacy of Armagh. St. Bernard provides many interesting anecdotes regarding St. Malachy and highly praises Malachy's zeal for religion both in Connacht and Armagh. In 1127, Malachy paid a second visit to Lismore and acted for a time as confessor to Cormac MacCarthy, Prince of Desmond. While Bishop of Down and Connacht, Malachy continued to reside at Bangor, and when some of the native princes sacked the two dioceses of Down and Connacht, Malachy brought the Bangor monks to Avera, County Kerry, where they were welcomed by now King Cormac. On the death of St. Celsus, St. Malachy was appointed Archbishop of Armagh 1132, which dignity he accepted with great reluctance. Owing to intrigues, he was unable to take possession of his see for 2 years. Even then he had to purchase the bachelisu from Niall, the usurping late primate. St. Malachy's influence in Irish ecclesiastical affairs has been compared with that of Boniface in Germany. During 3 years at Armagh, as Bernard of Clairvaux writes, St. Malachy restored the discipline of the Church, grown lax during the intruded rule of a series of lay abbots, and had the Roman liturgy adopted. St. Malachy worked zealously to restore ecclesiastical discipline, restored marriage, renewed the practices of confession and confirmation, and introduced Roman chants in the liturgy. He was also known for his care to the needy as a miracle worker and healer. In his lifetime, he planted apple trees throughout Ireland during time of famine. St. Bernard continues, having extirpated barbarism and re-established Christian morals, and seeing all things tranquil, St. Malachy began to think of his own peace. He therefore resigned the sees of Armagh and Connaught in 1136 or 1137, but retained as Bishop of Down. He founded a priory of Austin canons at Downpatrick, and was unceasing in his episcopal labours. Early in 1139, he journeyed to Rome, via Scotland, England, and France, visiting St. Bernard at Clairvaux. He petitioned Pope Innocent II for pallia for the sees of Armagh and Cashel, and was appointed legate for Ireland. On his return visit to Clairvaux, he obtained 5 monks for a foundation in Ireland, and a Christian, an Irishman, as superior. Thus arose the great Abbey of Mellifont in 1142. St. Malachy set out on a second journey to Rome in 1148, but on arriving at Clairvaux, he fell sick and died in the arms of St. Bernard, on the 2nd of November 1148. Veneration. In the book Life of St. Malachy, his biographer St. Bernard of Clairvaux says Malachy was distinguished by his meekness, humility, obedience, modesty, and true diligence in his studies. St. Charles Borromeo praised St. Malachy for attending to the needy, bringing the holy sacraments to all alike, and renewing the fervor of the people in receiving them. St. Malachy's feast is celebrated on the 3rd of November, so as not to clash with All Souls' Day. Relics. St. Malachy's body remained at Clairvaux Abbey, and eventually was placed in a tomb near Bernard of Clairvaux's after the abbot's own death. The tomb was moved several times with the rebuilding of the church. Portions of his remains were sent to Ireland in 1194 and deposited at Mellifont Abbey and other abbeys of the Cistercians. At some point at Clairvaux, part of Malachy's arm and part of his skull were removed and placed in special reliquaries in the abbey's treasury. His arm was kept in a silver case decorated with precious stones. A portion of his skull was kept in a bust reliquary of gilt silver, also decorated with precious stones and topped by a mitre. These reliquaries may have been enameled or painted. During the French Revolution, the reliquaries themselves were destroyed, although the relics were preserved. Malachy's head is now preserved in a reliquary in the treasury of Troyes Cathedral, not far from the site of Clairvaux. The tombs of the 2 friends and saints were destroyed in the aftermath of the Revolution, and the bones were commingled and distributed to various parishes in the district of Clairvaux. P.H. Wynyard published an account of the relics in the Patrologia Latina. Patronage. Malachy is patron saint of the Archdiocese of Armagh and the Diocese of Down and Connaught. St. Malachy's Church, Belfast, was intended to be the Cathedral Church of Down and Connaught, dedicated in honour of the diocesan patron. However, the Irish famine broke out and the grand plans for the St. Malachy's Cathedral were shelved to divert funds to the needy. A number of parishes are dedicated to St. Malachy, including those in Brownsburg, Indiana, Burlington, Massachusetts, Kennedy Township, New York City, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Geneseo, Illinois, and Rantoul, Illinois. Prophecy of the Popes. A prophecy of the Popes is attributed to Saint Malachy, which is claimed to predict that there will be only 112 more popes before the Last Judgment. Benedictine Arnold de Wyon discovered and published the so-called Doomsday Prophecy in 1590. Most scholars consider the document a 16th-century, elaborate hoax. James Weiss, a professor of church history at Boston College, has stated, "It is widely thought, given who the author was and his relationship, were published to establish the case for election of one particular cardinal." Thomas Groome, chair of the Department of Religious Education and Pastoral Ministry at Boston College, has a similar notion. "For myself, and even as a native Irishman, the prophecies of Saint Malachy are a grand old fun tale that have about as much reliability as the morning horoscope." Thomas J. Rees, S.J., of Georgetown University, had only this to say: St. Malachy's prophecy is nonsense. In popular culture, St. Malachy, his doomsday prophecy, and the conflicts between the Christians and pagans are important plot points in James Rollins's Sixth Sigma Force novel, The Doomsday Key, particularly in Chapter 21.